The landscape of public education has taken dramatic change in recent years. As a result, there has been tremendous change in how schools look, how they are categorized, and what schools focus on. Much of this change can be tied to school choice. School choice is simply a label given to policy that allows students and their families alternatives to traditional public schools or the schools that they were assigned to based upon where they live. Many people see this as an opportunity to empower parents, as well as address the chronic failure in public education that has been present for over a century. Others see this as an opportunity for private interests to get its hands on public money. As well, there are other scholars like myself that see this as part of a larger issue of gentrification, child exploitation, classism, and systemic racism. Through school choice, parents can choose a school that best fits their child, and the tax dollars follow that child to the next school. The intent behind this approach is the belief that if schools operated like businesses in the marketplace and children were like consumers and their tax dollars went to the best schools, then schools would compete amongst each other to perform better and to ensure that they would keep their doors open. School choice is achieved through a free market approach. This free market approach is also called a portfolio model for school districts. You can think of a portfolio model like a menu at a restaurant, where parents can choose between the traditional public school in their community or a charter school across town. These choices give the illusion that parents can choose a school that meets their students' needs. At the surface, this idea isn't too bad. Advocates and politicians suggest that this change would help in closing failing schools while attracting affluent families who left to the suburbs to come back to the urban core. In the case of my home city, Indianapolis, the former mayor and deputy mayor of education both claimed that school choice and the expansion of charter schools were needed to bring a tax base back to the city to make Indianapolis better. But herein lies the problem. Authentic, high-quality research has found time and time again that charter schools, on average, do not outperform traditional public schools. So you have to ask yourself this. After 25 years of the expansion of charter schools through a choice model, this free market model, why are we continuing to go down this path if it's shown not to be any better than what was there before? Much of the conversation about school choice is a new, innovative thing for parents and for students. However, history doesn't align with that. This is something that has been tried out for decades in countries around the world. So you have to really ask yourself, why are we trying this? What is the true intent behind this idea? Yes, we would like to believe that this is going to somehow help the chronic failure of public education, somehow help the school failure that we have seen, especially in poor communities of color, for over a century. But the data doesn't align to what it's trying to do. Much of this conversation is framed as a way to fix public schools in urban cities and to attract those who left for the suburbs to come back to the urban core. But there's something wrong with this logic. If your intent is to somehow change the format of schools to attract those who've left the city, you've already made the decision that the people who live in the city aren't worth investing in. If I were to be frank, I would say that this is just a sophisticated game of hot potato, and all you're doing is just displacing the poor once again, while not truly addressing the major issues. A lot of education reform, in particular to Central Indiana as well as the Midwest, is orchestrated by the Mind Trust. But the Mind Trust is like a Trojan horse. The Trojan horse is designed to deceive you. It looks new, exciting. It promises a lot of rewards. It wants you to become close to it. Get a relationship with it. However, as soon as you accept it into its city, the things that come out of it are nothing but deceit. Like a Trojan horse, the Mind Trust is here to deceive you about who it is, what its intentions are, and who's really behind it. The first and most important thing is that the Mind Trust is not a single organization. There's actually a network of organizations that work together, and here are just some of them. If you research the funding behind a lot of these organizations, you will come to find that a lot of the same individuals and big money are behind all of these organizations. If you were to research these in more detail, you will find that a lot of the big money behind the Mind Trust are wealthy individuals and organizations that are both local and external to Indianapolis, but also external to Indiana. For example, Stand for Children is a national organization. It has a financial mechanism that can be used to conceal the sources of hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is dark money being used to purchase control of Indianapolis public schools. The Mind Trust Network is deceitful through funding of school board members. In 2010, you could successfully run a school board campaign with $2,000 to $3,000 that you raise from friends, neighbors, and local churches. In 2012, when the Mind Trust Network became involved, the cost to successfully run an Indianapolis public school board campaign went from $2,000 to $3,000 to $50,000 to $70,000. And where did this money come from? The same big money individuals and organizations funding the Mind Trust Network. For example, Kelly Bentley, who in 2014 ran and successfully got a seat on the IPS school board. She received money from Democrats for Education Reform, which is out of New York, Ed Reform Now out of New York, Reid Hoffman from San Francisco, Stacy, Tulsa, Mark, Dover, as well as local folks from around Indianapolis. But who's actually coordinating all this national funding for local school districts? Well, here's a list of out-of-state individuals and organizations contributing to the Indianapolis Public School Board candidates. Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City, in 2012 gave $20,000 to several candidates for IPS school board. Democrats for Education Reform, over $46,000 out of New York. Reid Hoffman, owner of LinkedIn from California, as well as some Wall Street funders, a Walmart heir out of California, oil and energy heiress from Oklahoma, and venture capitalists from Massachusetts and Connecticut. So this is all to say that ordinary folks can no longer run a successful campaign if they want to be on the IPS school board. That means that behind the scenes, the Mind Trust Network is controlling the IPS school board. A third point that is really important is that the Mind Trust Network, although they keep talking about everything is so innovative, so new, it's actually not. This same model and approach is being employed in at least 39 other cities in the United States of America. And these efforts to take control of urban education nationally are being funded by the same big money individuals and organizations. Now I know, this sounds like some big conspiracy, but I'm gonna give you an example of how this actually worked. The Mind Trust Network added Stand for Children in 2011. Stand for Children has two financial arms that allow them to give campaign contribution to democratically elected officials. The Stand for Children PAC, which has a Portland, Oregon address, as well as the Stand for Children Indiana PAC, which also has a Portland, Oregon address, gave over a combined $23,000 to Robert Boehning. So you have to ask yourself, why is a PAC out of Portland, Oregon giving $23,000 to a House representative in Indiana? Robert Boehning is also the lead author for Public Law 1321, which in 2014 allowed IPS to circumvent federal law to partner with the Mind Trust and start the Innovation Network, or the Portfolio model. This law allowed IPS to hire Earl Martin Phelan, the CEO of Phelan Leadership Academy, a local charter school, to operate one of Indianapolis's new Innovation Network schools. Through this process, Earl Martin Phelan received nearly a salary of $285,000 while living in Boston. The point is that ultimately, the Mind Trust is making our children a source of profit. Another way that the Mind Trust is deceitful is the idea that they're using authentic, high-quality research that says that they have the best way to create schools that best serve poor white students and black students in Indianapolis and central Indiana. However, this is simply not supported by extensive research on how to create schools for urban youth. Based upon decades of high-quality research, the best way to improve schools for urban youth is to improve teaching. This is not validated just by U.S. research, but international research as well. The countries that do the best in international comparison are the ones that focus on building the ability of the teachers in the classroom, not on what particular model or theme of a particular school is. The Mind Trust Network is a Trojan horse. It's designed to deceive you, to fool us, into letting wealthy individuals and organizations take over control of Indianapolis public schools. Freedom is not given, it is taken by conquest. Freedom is out there for us to go after, so go chase freedom.